my name is Stephanie Bendixson and I am your host for the Business of Indie Games Virtual Summit. Today I'm chatting with career coach Rick Davidson. So welcome, Rick.
G'day, Steph. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much. If someone's really looking to get started in a career in games and game development, what's their first port of call in terms of their options?
There's so many ways to get into the industry. I think if we're talking about development here, so we're not talking about if you want to be a pro player, if you want to be a someone on the media side of things or a YouTuber, that's a different kettle of fish. At the moment, we're talking about if you want to make games and develop games, two main paths. Path number one is to make your own indie games, to be someone who's sitting there working in an engine or not in an engine and to craft up something you think is going to be amazing and publish it and have it be out there and be super successful. That's one way to have that as a career. It doesn't even have to be super successful, but just do okay. And the other path is to go and find a job in a studio and to put yourself out there as an employee and be part of a team and do some great work that way. Within that, there's so many different areas that people can specialize in, whether it's being a programmer or being an artist or designer, being a producer, doing audio, quality assurance, or lumping them all together. Particularly if you're an indie, you tend to do a little bit of everything. So I think today's conversation is mostly about if someone wants to make games.
And do you need any kinds of qualifications or skills to make games? Is it essential to have a degree?
I don't think it is. If you talk to some people, they say, yeah, you need to go to school, you need to get a degree, you need to get qualifications. So for me, I've interviewed and hired hundreds of people in the games industry, and it's very rare that I even give a remote, I don't give a crap. I just don't care if you went to this school or that school or how many degrees you've got. Like for me, I've got 4 different degrees and diplomas. People don't care. They don't even look at that. They don't care at all. They just want to know, what can you do? So looking at, prove to me that you can do a thing. Show me what you've got. Basically, show me what you've got. And they look at that and then they ask you, so what can you do? It's less about who are you. There's a lot more about what can you do for me. That's when you want to be an employee. Now, the caveat to that is, if you're sitting there and saying, I've got no idea how to do this stuff, I don't know how to program, or I'm no good at art, then school is a great option to go off and get that knowledge. But what I urge people to do, particularly anyone who's watching that is younger, maybe finishing up high school or doing a career change, you don't have to go and do a 4-year degree and spend a ton of money and take a whole bunch of your time to get those skills. There's a lot of different avenues and a lot of ways to do it. And as I'm sure anyone who's watched more than one of these videos will be able to tell you, that the recommendation is to just do it. Just jump in and start doing it. Practice makes perfect.
So let's talk about the opportunities that are out there. I mean, I'm sure people are wary of chasing trends and things that are popular in that moment, but what are the kinds of opportunities people should be looking out for?
We should probably distinguish our conversation into talking about getting a job and talking about making your own game. So
sure.
Excellent question. And that question is trends in both of those. Let's talk about getting a job first of all. So getting a job, what should people, what are the opportunities? The opportunities, they're very technical in nature in a lot of instances. So there's some people who have great ideas. So you might be sitting there saying, I've got a lot of great ideas, or I've made an indie game or two, I want to get a job. What an employer wants you to do is to say, do this thing on day one. You have to have day one value. What can you do right now? A lot of opportunities for programmers. There's a lot of opportunities in the mobile space, someone who's made mobile games. And if you're an artist, someone who's made mobile art. If you're a user interface artist, someone who's made user interface art for mobile games. So getting very specialized in terms of mobile. Obviously, virtual reality and VR and AR, and I think there's XR now as well, and all the other Rs are a huge opportunity as well, because the industry's talking about it. There's tons of money going into it. It's still newer. So the industry is not saying we need someone with 20 years of experience and 7 shipped games. If you know a little bit about VR and you've been playing around in the space for a year or two, then you have some value straight away to bring to that. So they're the big hot topics. There's always needs within bigger studios for roles like a technical artist, for example, someone who can bridge the gap between the tech guys and the art guys or make everything flow along the pipeline. So from an employee standpoint, they're the big buckets, but really the opportunity is being really good at what you do and being very specialized and very focused in that thing. The more focused you can be, the more opportunities you'll find for yourself. Even if it seems way too focused, So there'll be a guy on a team or a gal on a team. If it's a team of 100 or 200 or 300, there'll be someone who's just responsible for lighting these cinematic moments in the game. That's their job. They're lighting. So if you've got a cinematic eye, then you can focus on that. You can position yourself that and say, look how awesome I am. And look at these things that I've done in terms of lighting cinematic moments or lighting scenes within a game.
Let's move away from creating your own game for a moment and look at, let's just say you wanted to get work for an indie studio or any game studio. Yeah. What are employers looking for when hiring someone to work on their game?
They're looking for, show me you can do it, basically. Show me you can do the thing. And a lot of times people fall into the trap of saying, well, the employer is looking for a really good resume and cover letter. Okay, so I need to write a great cover letter. I don't think there's any, apart from if you're going to be a writer on a games team, writing good cover letters is super not important on a day-to-day role in the games industry. So employers might use that as a way to say, are you serious? Are you a contender? What have you done? But it's not about your resume. So for anyone sitting there saying, oh, I haven't really got a lot of jobs, or I don't know what to say about myself, that's not the important part. The important part is being able to create a thing, create a project, and to be able to give it to an employer and say, here is proof that I can do what you want me to do on your games team. So let's take an example. Say, for example, you want to be a gameplay programmer. Actually, no, let's take something a little bit more sexy. Say you want to work at Naughty Dog, which everyone wants to work at Naughty Dog because they're amazing. And they're often asking or looking for level designers. And level designers, there's so many different flavors of level designer. You can get more of an art-focused level designer, more of a cinematic-focused level designer, more of a scripting programming level designer, and enemy encounters, more of a story narrative. So there's a lot of flavors in there. Step number one is find out what the employer is looking for. Which particular flavor of level designer are you after? And the first way, you can probably guess what this is, the first way of figuring that out is looking at the job description. What are they asking for in there? If they want someone who's very skilled in a particular engine, I'm not sure what Naughty Dog uses, but if it's, say, Unreal or Crytek, they probably use their own engine, I think. If they use that and they say, we're looking for someone who is excellent at C++ and data structure, then you know, okay, this is what I need to focus on if I want that particular job. And then what you do is you go away for 1 or 2 weeks, not too long, 1 or 2 weeks, and you create something specifically to show them that you can do that thing. You don't rely on your resume. No one cares about your resume. And your resume might not look very good. So you don't rely on that. You don't hope on that. You don't bank on that. You go and create a thing because you really want to work for them. You go and make a level. You really focus on the things that they're interested in. And you deliver that to them and say, look, I'm proving that I can do the thing that you need me to do. Employers aren't asking you to do that. Not many people know that that's a technique you can use to get a job. I call it an artifact, creating an artifact or a pre-interview project. They're not looking for that, but when you give them that, it answers what they are looking for, which is prove to me that you can do the job.
And I suppose that sets you apart from other candidates as well, if you're already coming to them with work that you've kind of done specifically for that role.
Exactly. Yeah, no one does this. And this is, I've now, whether it's on my group coaching or in my courses that I run, I teach people to do this. And every now and again, someone will write to me and say, hey, Rick, you know, I implemented this technique you told me about and it blew their minds. They hadn't seen anyone do this before, that I turned up with more than just my resume or some games that I've worked on in the past. I turned up with a level that I'd made in their game engine for their game. They were just like, mind blown.
That's awesome. What about age? Does that play a factor? Does the industry favor a certain age for games employees?
I get asked this quite often from people who are 17 and worried they're too young, and people who are 47 and worried that they can't do the transition. You'll get some people out there that have an opinion on this. So some people, it's an interview bias, right? So you tend to like to employ people similar to yourself. So if you're someone who's really into, I don't know, football, and then you have a chat with a candidate who's really into football, you're not supposed to, but you feel a little bit more connected to that person. So, you know, one of the techniques you should do when you're in an interview, make sure you ask questions of the interviewer, not about football, but, you know, what games are you playing, or what do you like to do, or where else have you worked? If someone's really into, I'm playing PUBG at the moment, and if you play PUBG at the moment as well, then you talk about that for a while, because then you get this connection of being similar.
It comes down to experience a lot more time. I mean, someone older might have a lot more experience in the industry, although someone's younger might have their finger more on the pulse.
Exactly. It's what can you do? So someone who's older as an employer, I would look at someone who wants to be, say, a level designer. I'm like, okay, you're pretty old. What's going on here? Have you made levels? If you've been making levels for the last 10 or 20 years, then you shouldn't be applying for this junior level designer position. What's going on here? So I have questions. If you have a good answer for that, well, you know, I've done all these other things which I think contribute to being a great level designer, but I just haven't had the opportunity. It's time for a career change. I love this. It's my passion. It's my life. Give me an opportunity. Then I think age doesn't matter. Likewise, if you're young, I'm looking at you saying, what have you done? Like, how do you even know how to work in a team? So I'm going to have questions that you need to address. And those questions, if you're not sure if you're a certain age and you don't know what questions the employer is going to be asking or worried about, then that's a great conversation to go off and ask people about. Hey, I'm 19 years old. What is an employer going to be worried about? Well, I'm worried you don't even know how to work in an office. I need to prove to you I know how to work in an office, either based upon showing you what I've done in the past or showing you an example of me working in an office.
How about working internationally? Is it difficult to get a job in a country other than the one that you work in?
Yeah, super difficult. I have a lot of people who contact me asking about, I'm in Brazil, or I'm in China, or I'm in India, and I'd really like to work in the States or work in Canada or work in Australia. It's very, very difficult. And generally companies need to prove to the government organization that you as an individual are better than local candidates. That
you have exceptional skills, I believe it is. Yeah,
exactly, exceptional skills. You need to get a work permit. You need to be really good. So that's the answer. If you're really good, then you can absolutely go work in another place. And how do you prove that you're really good? Well, you have games that you've made already. You have a really good, if you're an artist, you have an amazing portfolio. If you're a producer, then you can show you've run some really great projects. You can't just do it based upon, hey, I'm a cool person and I like games. So the answer is it's difficult, but if you specialize in one thing and become as amazing, if you're the world's best rendering programmer, you will get a job anywhere, no problem.
Sure. So it's often said that a good way for getting your foot in the door in the games industry is starting in QA and then moving into the position that you actually want to work in. Would you say that is actually a good approach?
Yes and no. So here's the caveat. So employers normally, when they're hiring for QA, they normally have their nose tuned to someone who's doesn't really want to do it, but just using it as a stepping stone. So first point is, if you want to get a job in QA, you have to really show that you love QA, that you love the integrity of making a great product, that you're good at spotting issues and finding what's going on, good at documenting. You need to show that you can write up bugs, you understand what a bug database is about. Maybe you've created something in Jira that you can show. Jira is a very popular application for bug databases. So you need to be able to show that. That's point number one. Point number two is, if you're not really into QA, then don't do it. Don't do that as an entry point. Go and spend the time to get really amazing at gameplay programming or at tech art or at 2D illustration, whatever it is that you're really into. Really, really focus on that and don't get distracted by something else. If you want to be a designer and you're also interested in QA and you're young and you're not really sure what you want to do, then absolutely go the QA path. And that's the same conversation for someone saying, well, I really want to be a designer. Should I go be a producer? I really want to be a concept artist. Should I go off and be a 3D artist? Put the priority into what you really would love to do and be amazing at that. And the more time you invest in that, the more chance you'll have of getting that thing you really want to do.
How about networking? I personally find it super difficult. And I'd say a lot of people who work in the games industry, perhaps a little bit more introverted, it's difficult to kind of put yourself out there and try and, form connections with people. Mm-hmm. What are some ways that people can get started in networking to put themselves out there and get themselves on the radar of people who are looking for, employees for their studio?
LinkedIn is magic. LinkedIn, maybe if someone's watching this conversation in a few years' time, maybe LinkedIn won't be what it is today, but today it's absolute magic for getting a job. For indies, kind of useless. No one's finding out about your game through LinkedIn.
Sure.
But every single HR recruitment person is on LinkedIn and they're paying attention to what's going on LinkedIn. Most of the senior folks in a studio will be on LinkedIn. So if you're looking to form connections, that's the first point. And you're not going to start an amazing friendship from LinkedIn, but you'll get an opportunity to ask a question, and that can be incredibly powerful. So if you send out a whole bunch of LinkedIn requests, and I'm a big believer in just send out to everyone. See someone interesting, LinkedIn request. You meet someone, LinkedIn request. You read an article, LinkedIn request that someone's written. So send it out, be polite. The structure of it is make sure you compliment someone first. So here's a very practical tip. If you're sending a LinkedIn request, compliment someone first. Hey, I read your article, it was really cool. Or I watched your YouTube video and I learned a lot. Or Steph, the interview you did with Rick was, you were great. He was so, but your color coordination was fantastic. So that black and white thing you had going on was amazing. So start off with that. So someone can see that you've paid attention, that you're not a bot, that you're not a scammer, that you're not trying to sell them something. And then, hey, do you mind if we connect? It'd be cool. And so you'll send out those. Say you send out 100, you'll get 10 or 20 that say yes, depending upon how strong your LinkedIn profile is. So for me, I've been on LinkedIn for a long time. I put a lot of time and effort into it. I teach people how to do LinkedIn. So I'm pretty conscious that my LinkedIn needs to be pretty good. So when I knock on someone's LinkedIn door, they open it up and see someone legitimate and they're like, okay, well, we can be friends. And then that gives me the opportunity to say, hey, I know you're busy, got a really quick question. There's this role that I see advertised. Could you please tell me who is the one best person in your company to speak with about that role? Or who's the one HR representative that's managing the applications for this role? Or who, I saw in this application, or I saw that your company works in such and such an engine, and I was just hoping to talk to someone about a very specific detail. Say you're a programmer, a very specific detail about how you handle your AI pathfinding algorithm. Because I'm writing a paper on it or something like that. So there's a lot more to it. There's a lot more sophistication to it than that. But, oh man, today's day and age, we have it a lot easier. The fact that we have online tools that we can use for networking, and LinkedIn it's a beautiful place to start.
What about someone who maybe has been not working in the games industry, but has applicable skills and is looking to transition? What advice would you have for someone who's looking to do that?
Make it relevant to games. So I've seen a lot of people that say I've got 10 years as a web developer, which is great. That shows that you can work on time to a schedule. It shows that you can work to a budget. It shows that you can work with other people. It shows, all these great things. Mm. But then if I'm an employer looking for someone to be say a front-end programmer on my game, I look at that and I say, I don't actually know if you could be a front-end programmer on a game. I just know that you're kind of a good person, and that you'd pick it up one day. Employers, unless there's some sort of very generous internship program, and games companies tend not to have a lot of those, unless there's that, very few employers will say, oh, we'll take this person who's kind of smart and then train them up in terms of the skills they need. You need to come along as the package with the skills. So that person needs to go and work on a game project. If you haven't worked on game projects, go work on one. Spend a couple of months on your own game project to show that you can do the relevant things that can port over to the games industry. If you apply and there's not games on your resume, games here, games there, games there, or you can't show them, here's some gamey stuff, then you're going to get passed over, because that's what an employer needs you to do, make games.
So spend some time working on that kind of thing first, so that you've got something concrete that you can show them.
Totally.
Yeah. Well, let's transition now to indie developers who maybe have been working on a game themselves, or have an idea for a game, or have a game finished already. I think it's hard to get sort of, when you spend so much time on something, to really know if it's even any good, or if other people are going to like it, or if it has a chance of being successful. I mean, how do you know if it's worth pursuing?
Imagine people watching this have got a game idea, or have got a game they've worked on, or maybe they've worked on it for 3 years now, like, cool, I've come to this place to figure out how to market my game. I think you need to be getting feedback from your community really early, like concept stage. So there's one very practical way that you can do that I found works really well. Say you've got a core game mechanic you've been working on, maybe a game loop, perhaps you've got some art, perhaps you've got just a concept. If you go onto Facebook, onto the Indie Game Developers Facebook group, it's the big ones, about 100,000 or more people that are on there. Every weekend, you can post a Screenshot Saturday. So you're not allowed to self-promote most of the time. You're not allowed to get there and say, hey, check out my game. But on Saturday, anything goes. If you post your game and you need a video of it, a 10, 15-second video so people can see it, don't post a link to go play your game. No one will ever do that. Just post a video or a GIF or a GIF, depending on what country you're in. So post something out there, make it visual, make it interesting. If you want to have some sort of text that explains it, for example, the hardest roller coaster shooter zombie game ever. And then you've got a little bit of, doing what that is. If you post that up there and you get 100 likes or comments or engagement or more, then you've got something that might be worth pursuing. If you get less than that, say you get 50, then maybe, but you might need to craft it a little bit differently. If you get like 20 or less, then your idea is a stinker. Or you've presented in such a terrible way that, people aren't interested in it. But usually if you're presented in such a terrible such a terrible way, it gets a little bit of that so bad it's good. And then people enjoy saying, this is terrible. And then you get a little bit of engagement. But that's not the sort of engagement we're looking for here. But that's a really good yardstick. So there's a client that I've been working with recently who has held on. And I was like, you've got to get it on there. You've got to get it on there. Like, get it out there. Show people, show the world. I'm not sure. Show the world. And eventually he put it out there. I think his first post had more than 1,000 likes on it. It looked really good, like a really slick RTS type game. And from that moment, this game can be successful if created correctly, if marketed correctly, because it's already got something about it. It's already got a little bit of a wow. If there's not, people saying, oh, this kind of could be cool, then start again or change it or put more work into it. So that's how you can know if your idea's got legs. And you don't want to be having that conversation after 2 years of development where people say, not sure about this. You want to be doing it after a couple of months of development or a couple of weeks where you've got a concept.
Are there specific opportunities that you've noticed nowadays for indie games that people should be sort of trying to tap into?
It's a tough one. People are always talking about, is the market saturated and can you make money on mobile and what's the opportunity now? I always come back to the opportunity is making something remarkable. So it's not necessarily about the platform or about the technology or about the theme. If you make something and show it to people and they say, wow, then it can have a chance of succeeding. If you want to make something on mobile, then maybe if people are like, wow, you can go and find a publisher or you can kickstart it so that you get more of that momentum and popularity for your game. So the opportunity today is not I don't think is a specific tactical type opportunity. If I go and do something in VR, I can, if I'm on the Oculus, there's an opportunity there. There's plenty of those sorts of opportunities, but no specific big winner. The opportunity is doing something on Oculus that no one's even thought about doing before. That stands out, that's so crazy or so difficult or so amazing or so ugly. It doesn't have to be that it's just a AAA quality amazing thing. If you make something that looks just, what the heck is this? The best example I have of that is one of my favorite games of all time, Katamari Damacy. I'm not sure, have you played that? Is that something that
I haven't, but I've heard of it, yeah.
It's a really old game now, but when that game came out, graphics were pushing to be better and more realistic and more awesome. And this game came out very blocky, not quite voxel, like not square, but more of a polygonal style, and just weird as heck, like very Japanese. You're this little guy pushing around this huge kind of dung beetle ball, and it gets bigger, and you're picking up things in the world, and people are kind of stuck on there, and your dad's the king, and it's just weird. And within the first few minutes, so you see a marketing poster of it, and the king's like this weird guy lounging, doing like a vanity pose with this big kind of squished head. The whole thing is just weird and interesting and amazing, and it works. So it just pops so much. So if you're an indie, you have to aim for that sort of weird or amazing or strange or the best ever, something that is extreme that really stands out.
And I imagine it must be hard as well, because a lot of people would be wanting to jump onto whatever's hot at the moment and capture that corner of the market. But by the time your game is finished, who knows if that's still going to be popular. So anticipating trends must be really difficult.
Yeah, I love Steam. I'm a Steam gamer. I like console games, I like mobile games, but Steam is where I like to play games. And I think indies are now worried that, well, Steam's going to get more and more bloated because it's easier to get on there. I think it's the same thing. I go through my Steam, I look on Steam, I'm like, I'm still looking for a game that connects with me. Then maybe they're not that game, maybe not that game. Doesn't matter if there's 1,000 no's, it just takes one yes. So I'd say to indies out there worried that there's a lot more competition, there's a lot more junk, which is fine. People are allowed to give it a try and put it out there, but don't be stressed about the amount of competition out there. If you find something that's fresh and interesting and wow, you will absolutely stand out and you'll have an opportunity to capture people's attention.
Should people be looking to keep like 100% control of their game, or is it okay to relinquish a little bit of it if it's going to help you in other ways?
I think it's okay. So I'm sure people get advice from lots of different areas and people have been through different experiences. I think if you try to, no man is an island. If you try to do it all yourself, then it's going to be very difficult. If you find someone to partner up with, maybe you're the technical person and they're the art person, and you need to give them 50% of the whole thing in order to get them excited and motivated, then do that. It's the classic, it's better to have a small part of a big pie than a big part of no pie. And so I think it's okay to give it away so long as you get something good in return. If you're working with a publisher, I think people need to be super careful that they get something amazing in return from giving away something to the publisher. I'm a big fan of revenue sharing. So if you've got your game and someone comes along and says, I'll do the marketing for you, or I'll be the publisher or whatever, to not give them ownership of the product, but to give them a share of the sales of the product so that you can have an end date on it where you can say, well, that was good, but now it's all mine. Or, I'm going to do a sequel, or I've got some other products, or I'm going to port it to a different platform so that they get a good deal. Maybe it's a 50-50 or a 60-40 when they're out there promoting it to their people, but that they're not having any sort of stake in, I want to change it, or I want to poke around with it, or I want you to do this, or if you don't do that, you're in trouble. And the days of a publisher saying, here's X millions of dollars, please make me a game, are kind of done. Back when I was first in the industry, that's the way it worked. I worked for a third-party developer. We had, a couple of hundred people in our studio. There'd be an Activision or a Konami or a Midway or an EA saying, not so much EA, but here's a whole bunch of money, make us a game. Nowadays, the way it works is you make the game, you get it pretty much done, and then you go out to the publisher and say, this is pretty much done. People love it. Let's talk. And the publisher says, or the marketer says, or the platform says, cool, we'll give it a good push. And in return for that, we want a certain percentage of the sales of our push.
And what about, when you're in the process of development and you need a little bit of help, how can developers go about finding teammates to work on the game with them?
I think there's nothing better than face-to-face connection. If it's someone you've gone to school with, great. If it's someone that is a friend, great. Just make sure you have good kind of agreement on the way it works. But going to conferences, meetups, game jams, that's where you meet the people and you can see what they're like in person. You can see the sort of, you can tell within the first few minutes if you're going to connect with someone. I think that's the way to do it. So rather than just trying to do it all online, to try to find someone on a forum or in a group, you're like, hey, let's do a project together, very low chance of success, but get your butt off the seat and get over to whatever conferences or game jams or meetups are nearby. If there are none, then create one. I saw recently, I forget where I saw this, but a guy was talking about how he had created his own meetup in his small town and there, 10 indies, it was a little small town, 10 indies came out of the woodwork. Now they've got this really nice, literally scurrying out. They've got this tight little community of people who you can talk to and share notes, maybe collaborate with on a project.
We have something here in Sydney, and I think there's in Melbourne as well, called Beer and Pixels, which is awesome. I think people can get together and talk about what they're working on, or put feelers out there for other people's projects and stuff. It's awesome. Yeah.
Those Australians, with their beer and pixels.
Once you bring other people onto your project, things can get a little bit complicated when it comes to money, I guess. How do you structure financial agreements with teammates? How do you divide the revenue? Maybe it was your idea, but other people are now kind of contributing different aspects to it.
I'm a big fan of you earn what you get. So if you've got you and two friends you've gone to school with, for example, and you say, let's make a game together. What a lot of people do is say, cool, let's just go a third each. And then the problem you get is that person number 3 gets busy with life. So person number 1 and 2 are working really hard. Person number 3 doesn't do anything. It's like, that person's getting 33% and they're not really doing much. And we resent that. Let's have a conversation about you're going to get less. So it's just a big mess. So what I like is each period of time, each week or each month, you have a look and say, what did people contribute? Either on the quality of their creation. So you made 7, art assets, you made, 3 gameplay features, you sketched out our levels. So it could be on the actual construction or just hours of input. So you work 20 hours, I work 30 hours, you work 50 hours. And then from that, you allocate points. So say we all did the equal amount of work and we all did 40 hours work, then we all get 40 hours of points. So at the end of that first period of time, we all have equal ownership. And then maybe a few months later, I've done twice the amount of work as my buddies, then I'll have more points than them. And that will equate to our revenue share if and when we ship this game and if and when the game makes money. But I'd say my advice is don't go and incorporate. I'm not a lawyer, so take it with a grain of salt. Don't go and incorporate a company. Don't go and get a shareholders agreement. Don't go and have a complicated share structure. In other words, don't do all the things that Rick did when he started his indie company, because I thought those things were super important. It's only important to do all those things when you're either about to earn a bunch of money or be given a bunch of money. You're about to earn a bunch of money, like, okay, we better button this up, boys. Let's get some lawyers and contracts because, our Kickstarter's about to deliver, $2.3 million into our pockets. We better be buttoned up. At that point, it doesn't even have to be that much. I'm being a bit facetious. We're about to get a bunch of money, or it looks like we're about to launch our game. We've got, a good feeling that it's going to go well. And then make sure you're buttoned up with some sort of agreement, even if it's not a lawyer agreement. Or someone's about to give you some investment. Hey, I can see you guys are working hard at this. Uncle Bill is happy to give you $30,000 because we want to see you succeed. At that point as well, you need to have something written down, have it buttoned up. But if you're just putting in your labor, just putting in your sweat equity, then do it in a very casual, informal way. Have something written down on an email. I'm going like that for an email. Go something written down for an email that just says, hey, we get a certain number of points for a certain amount of work.
And what other aspects of starting a business should people be thinking about? I mean, should you be thinking about giving shares to team members and things like that, even in the early stages?
I think you should think about it, but then not do it. Think about it. It's cool to dream about the long term. Like, it's cool to be motivated by, what if we end up like Minecraft? Which mansion will you buy in LA if you end up like Notch? And, where can we get? It's good to dream, but I think in the early days, don't get business cards. Don't get a company website. Again, stuff that this dumb guy did. Don't get shares. Don't give shares. Just don't do those things at all until you absolutely have to.
It's hard because I feel like a lot of that stuff can be incredibly motivating as well. I know, like, I don't think people even really use business cards anymore, but it's always the first thing I do when I start a new job because I want to be able to be like, look, this is where I work and this is my name on there.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I like that. And you're probably smart about how you do it. You jump online and half an hour later, you've got a cool business card. I was dumb. I had our art director make a really cool logo and we all talked about it and had input into this logo because we wanted to have our cultural fit and we took so much time and then we made these business cards. And honestly, we should have just done it in half an hour. It's having a card to say, this is who I am, good. Having the world's best business card, doesn't matter. It's like, cool. Is this a video game? Oh, no, this is just my business card. Well, then why'd you put so much time into it?
Do you have any thoughts on marketing and I guess where people can start thinking about how to market their game?
I think it's back to the remarkability point I was saying before. And back to the example I was giving of the guy that I've been working with who's making an RTS. If your game has punch, if your game has wow, if your game is remarkable, then the marketing becomes 1,000 times easier. Because you show it to someone, they're like, hey, would you mind if I make a video about this? You're like, marketing. If it's the other way around, if you've got something and you're like, knock, 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 hey, would you mind? Okay, no problem. Hey, would you have a look at, then it's going to be just such a painful journey. So marketing as a game developer, I think a lot of marketing folks and a lot of successful indies will talk about, you've got to be super proactive. You've got to have relationships with YouTubers. You've got to have relationships with portals, with bloggers. I think the marketing formula is really simple. And you need a little bit of a budget to do this. But if you do have a little bit of a budget, you make a game that if people look at it, they go, wow, that's cool. And if you don't get the wow, that's cool, then you don't go to stage 2. That's stage 1. If wow is cool, then go to stage 2. Otherwise, rinse and repeat. Stage 2 is go off to a conference, go off to a convention, go off to a game, something that's talking about games. So, GDC at the extreme, E3 at a different extreme, PAX at another extreme. Like they're the big examples of it, but smaller examples as well. Go off, show your game. And as people are walking around, if someone's a a YouTuber or a blogger or a publisher or someone who has a network or an influence, if they see it and they go, oh, wow, then your marketing will start to take care of itself. So that's my advice for marketing.
If you could do one thing differently in your indie game career, apart from not focusing on business cards, what would it be?
Yeah, thanks for that. I would go faster. I played it safe. So I had some money that I'd put aside, and you got to, the formula for being an indie game developer, you've got to have money coming from somewhere, or you've got to have a runway, at least 6 months. 12 months is better. So 6 months where you can eat, sleep, and pay the rent and pay whatever kind of running costs of servers and stuff. At least 6 months, 12 months is better. These things take time. So I had that and I thought, this is cool. I want to maximize that. You know what? I could probably squeeze this money and have it last longer. So then I went and found the cheapest things that I could get, working with an artist to do some assets. I'm going to try to find the cheapest artist possible. I'm going to squeeze it out. And after that's done, I'm going to do this. So I was thinking about it from the point of view of how long can I last? That was my biggest mistake as an indie developer. How long can I last? I should have been looking at it from the point of view of how quickly can I make money? That is, from a business point of view, cash flow is king, as they say. So if you've got a pool of money, ask yourself, how can I turn this into success quickly? Do I need to go and pay 5 people to do certain things? Bang, bang, bang. And then I get to that point in 3 months. If it doesn't work out, boom, I've lost all my money. That is better than dragging it out over 12 months and then losing all your money. And the caveat I'll put to this is don't go and chuck your money at something until you know that it's going to be successful, until people look at your demo and say, oh, wow, that's really cool. So you want to do it in stages of, I think this has legs, chuck things at it. I think this is going well, chuck things at it, move on. So don't go slow. That would be the advice that I would give. Don't play safe. Don't try to last as long as you can. The aim of the game, or the name of the game, is to be increase your knowledge as quickly as you can, fail fast, and get to the point where you can succeed as quickly as possible.
My final question would be, do you have some final words of advice or wisdom that you could leave anyone out there who might be looking to pursue a career in games?
Be patient. So Gary Vaynerchuk, I'm not sure if people watching know Gary Vaynerchuk, but I love his philosophy. It's like, be patient. Stop being in such a hurry. Stop being like, I have to succeed right now. To achieve mastery in something takes years, takes a long time. And you have to really invest yourself. You have to be consistent every day, work hard at it, and really go for it. So the notion of it's going to take years can be a bit daunting, like, oh, I don't want to do that. But if you love games, love making games, love being part of the conversation, if it's your dream to have a career making games, if it truly is a dream, if it's just to be nice, you're not going to succeed. I should do this, you're not going to succeed. If you're like, this is my calling, then go for it every day, get better at what you do. And truly, this is the sort of industry where each day you can get better, and getting better has a huge impact. If you're crap, you don't do well. If you get better, you do well. It's as linear as that. And it's not guaranteed, but if you get better, put a game out there, it has a chance of succeeding, make an even better game, chance of succeeding, even better game. So my mantra that I talk to people about, my coaching clients or people when I'm doing my training videos, my mantra is usually, if you've got a good game plan and if you're willing to do the work, it's not a matter of if you'll succeed, it's a matter of when. It might take time, but it's not a matter of if. If you really go for it, it's a matter of when.
Awesome, Rick. How can people find you if they'd like to get in touch with you online?
Tons of ways on LinkedIn. So, I'm super proud. Can I brag for a second, Steph? Is that okay?
Go for it. Go for it.
Okay. So when I first started doing things online, transitioning from being more of in development studios and then having my own indie stuff, and then being more of I want to help a lot of people. I want to do training and all that kind of good stuff, coaching. I Googled myself, Rick Davidson. And I was way down the list. The guy at the top was Rick Davidson. I think it's Century 21 CEO, like real estate stuff. I'm like, oh, curse you, Rick Davidson, other Rick Davidson. Someone types in Rick Davidson now. I'm super proud to say that I think the first 4 or 5 or 6 entries is this guy. So people will find my LinkedIn profile. They'll find my Udemy profile, which is where a lot of my training programs are. I'm teamed up with Game Dev TV. I'm part of the Game Dev TV team. And we're pretty proud that we have the most popular and successful game development training courses on Udemy. Udemy is the big training platform they'll find my YouTube channel. They'll find, I don't know, probably some things that I didn't realize were on there that I don't want my mother to see, but ignore those ones. So I'm more than happy to hear from people through LinkedIn, through my YouTube channel, or through my website, gamecareercoach.com. I'd love to hear from people.
Well, Rick, it's been really incredible and super insightful talking to you today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Steph. Lovely speaking to you as well.